All right, so the first polls close in less than 72 hours. More than 39 million early ballots have already been cast. And here's President Obama just a short time ago in Philadelphia.
Fundamental rights are on the ballot. Truth and facts and logic and reason and basic decency are on the ballot. Democracy itself is on the ballot. The stakes are high.
Now, election officials in swing states like Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona are making clear they are confident they can get the job done. But they are facing major challenges. There are heightened levels of threats, growing intimidation tactics, election-related lawsuits, and, of course, a large number of Republican candidates who are refusing to accept the election results. According to Axios, election deniers are signing on as poll watchers in places like Colorado and Pennsylvania. The New York Times reports that at least 36 lawyers and law firms who advanced Trump's big lie are now working for Republicans in the midterms. And just this week, we learned that Cleta Mitchell, the former Trump attorney who fought to overturn the 2020 election results, told election groups in Michigan that her vision ahead of Election Day is, quote, hand-to-hand combat with the left. Now, even before Tuesday, there have been unprecedented efforts to disrupt the vote, maybe more than any election in recent memory. We can safely say we just don't know what is going to happen on Tuesday. We are going to try to make sense of where we are right now with the help of secretaries of state from across the nation. Joining us now are Colorado Secretary of State and chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State, Jena Griswold, Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon, New Mexico Secretary of State Maggie Toulouse Oliver, and California Secretary of State Shirley Nash Weber. It's great to have all of you with us. Secretary Griswold, I'd like to start with you as the chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. Talk to me about these conspiracy-fueled threats. How concerned are you, and how are you and others fighting back in this critical juncture?
Well, first off, Eamon, thank you so much for having us on. It means so much that Americans are so focused on our elections and democracy. And honestly, talking about optimism versus pessimism, I am optimistic we are going to have a great election here in Colorado and across the country. That doesn't mean the challenges aren't new. We have been living under the worst attack on the right to vote in recent times. We are seeing coordinated efforts to suppress the vote, intimidate voters in an unfashionable, in a way we just haven't seen recently. But with that said, these secretaries of state with us tonight and across the nation are standing up for American voters, are standing up for elections. And every American voter in this country should make their voices heard and believe you will be able to do so in free, fair, and safe elections.
Secretary Simon, your opponent is undoubtedly a 2020 election denier. She said in a press conference in October, quote, Minnesota laws were not followed. How are you combating that to your constituents and to the votes that you're trying to win?
Well, I just want to put things in perspective. In Minnesota, Joe Biden won the election by 230,000 votes. This was not close. Yet my opponent and others who follow her say that we'll never know who won the state. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. And it's hard to know how to respond to that other than saying that some folks have been misled and to always try to lead with the truth. I think that's what we really have had for years, is lead with the truth in confronting some of that disinformation. And by the way, we're not naive, and neither are your viewers. Just leading with the truth and saying what the truth is isn't going to make the lies or the people who peddle them go away. Not everyone's going to do a 180, but they might do a 22, they might do a 37, they might do a 46, and over time that can have an effect.
And Secretary Toulouse Oliver, your opponent is part of the America First SOS Coalition, which is a national alliance of election-denying Secretary of State candidates that was created by the Trump-endorsed candidate in Nevada, Jim Marchant. What do you make of that you can actually have a coalition of election deniers running on tickets in very critical positions? Because it's not just about what they do in this election. It's about, if they do win, what they will do in future elections.
Well, it's absurd, but it's not only absurd, it's scary. I think, fortunately, our races are looking pretty good in many of these states with a lot of these election deniers on the ballot. But it's a very real possibility that we will see one or some of these folks elected. And what that means is that there will be people serving in office who are supposed to be the fair and nonpartisan, impartial arbiters of our election process, who are going to be in that office for the purpose of throwing an election and subverting the will of the people. So this is very concerning, and folks in all of our states that have these America First or any election denier candidate need to get out and vote as if their vote depends on it, because it is the very real fact of the matter.
Secretary Weber, from just a purely technical perspective, you run elections in the most populous state in our union. How are you reassuring voters that this election will be free and fair? What is keeping you up at night?
Well, we worry about all the things that everyone else worries about, because even though we're a really strong Democratic state, and we don't have the deniers running for office in great numbers, and probably will have none of them to win and come Tuesday because of California's strong position on voting rights. But we also know that there are ways in which you can frustrate voters, you can intimidate them, you can keep them from coming to the polls by doing various things at the polls itself. And so we have gotten together with our Attorney General, with the FBI, and with everyone else, and we've said to people very honestly that we're protecting our workers, we're protecting those who come to vote. We won't tolerate anything happening to any individual, and that they are safe in coming into our polls. And so we have made written legislation to protect them, because we know that if we give just an inch of something with regard to that opens up the floodgate for other things to happen. California should be the example of how people are going to be treated when they come to vote, and how we're going to honor every vote that's there. We've been very, very fair with the Democrats and Republicans in terms of those getting on the ballot. I've ruled sometimes against folks that I know quite well, the governor and others, to make sure that they follow all the rules and regulations. So we're very transparent about what we do, but we won't tolerate any of the things that are happening across the nation. And we have been flooded with lawsuits. I mean, our Attorney General, as well as my attorneys in my office, have been flooded with lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits, none of them basically proven to be true, just consuming our time and energy and frustrating people in the process. But we continue to fight, and we believe that we have to fight, and California has the resources and has the position to be able to fight and to support our friends and colleagues in the other states.
Secretary Griswold, what is your advice to voters if they're being intimidated at the polls? What should folks be doing if they see what is happening, as allegations have been made in Arizona, happening in your state?
Well, first off, we have a zero tolerance policy for any type of intimidation. So no Coloradan, no American should feel intimidated in casting their ballot. Here in Colorado, it's against state law. It's also against federal law. If you have any concerns, contact the DOJ, contact local law enforcement, your Secretary of State. But more than just that, we cannot allow threats of intimidation, fear to chill the vote. That is part of the attack on democracy itself. It's the vitriol. And on top of some of the reports we're seeing at the polls, the use of threats and scare tactics have been turned towards election workers also. And that's why, Eamon, this year I led a series of new laws in the state of Colorado. It's now a crime to dox or retaliate an election worker. We made it a felony to compromise voting equipment. We made it a crime to open carry close to a drop box or voting center or where they process votes, to make sure our state laws are tight and to make sure that every eligible voter, regardless of the color of their skin, their zip code, or the amount of money in their bank account, has access to the franchise.
All right, secretaries, please stick around. We've got a lot more to discuss. After the break, we are going to discuss the very